Question 1. What is the primary objective of community-oriented policing in Rhode Island? A. Enforcing strict law and order to deter criminal activity. B. Establishing a hierarchical relationship between police officers and community members. C. Building collaborative partnerships between law enforcement agencies and Rhode Island communities. D. Conducting surveillance operations to monitor community members' activities. Correct answer. C. Building collaborative partnerships between law enforcement agencies and Rhode Island communities. Explanation. Community-oriented policing in Rhode Island emphasizes the importance of building trust, fostering cooperation, and working collaboratively with community members to address public safety concerns. Rather than solely relying on traditional enforcement methods, this approach encourages law enforcement agencies to engage with residents, businesses, and other stakeholders to identify and solve problems collectively. By forging positive relationships and partnerships, police officers can gain valuable insights into local issues, mobilize community resources, and develop targeted strategies to address crime and disorder effectively. Community-oriented policing reflects the principles of community policing tailored to Rhode Island's diverse communities, promoting transparency, accountability, and mutual respect between law enforcement and the public. Question 2. In Rhode Island, under what circumstances can law enforcement officers conduct a warrantless search of a suspect's vehicle? A. If the officer has a hunch or intuition that the vehicle contains contraband or evidence of a crime. B. If the suspect gives consent to the search voluntarily. C. If the officer believes there is probable cause to justify the search based on specific and articulable facts. D. If the vehicle is parked in a public area without a valid parking permit. Correct answer. C. If the officer believes there is probable cause to justify the search based on specific and articulable facts. Explanation. In Rhode Island, law enforcement officers may conduct a warrantless search of a suspect's vehicle if they have probable cause to believe that the vehicle contains evidence of a crime or contraband. Probable cause requires more than just a mere suspicion or hunch. It must be based on specific and articulable facts that would lead a reasonable person to believe that evidence of a crime is present in the vehicle. However, if the suspect voluntarily consents to the search, a warrant is not required. It's essential for officers to understand the legal standards for conducting searches to ensure compliance with the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and Rhode Island law, which protect individuals against unreasonable searches and seizures. Question 3. Scenario. Mr. Thompson, a Rhode Island police officer, responds to a call about a disturbance at a local park. Upon arrival, he encounters a group of teenagers engaged in a verbal altercation. Mr. Thompson notices that one of the teenagers, Emily, appears upset and agitated. As he approaches the group to intervene, Emily begins shouting obscenities and refuses to comply with his commands to calm down. What should Officer Thompson do in this situation? A. Immediately restrain Emily and place her under arrest for disorderly conduct. B. Engage Emily in dialogue, using active listening techniques to understand her perspective and attempt to de-escalate the situation. C. Disregard Emily's behavior and focus on dispersing the entire group from the park. D. Request backup from additional officers to assist in controlling the situation. Question 4. When faced with a potentially volatile situation in Rhode Island, which of the following factors should law enforcement officers prioritize in their decision-making process? A. Resolving the situation as quickly as possible, even if it requires the use of force. B. Considering the perspectives and needs of all parties involved, including bystanders and witnesses. C. Maintaining strict adherence to policies and procedures without flexibility. D. Exercising unilateral decision-making authority without consulting colleagues or supervisors. Correct answer. B. Considering the perspectives and needs of all parties involved, including bystanders and witnesses. Explanation. Critical thinking and problem-solving skills are essential for Rhode Island law enforcement officers when responding to dynamic and potentially volatile situations. Prioritizing the perspectives and needs of all parties involved, including bystanders and witnesses, allows officers to gather relevant information, assess the risks, and make informed decisions that prioritize public safety and minimize harm. By considering various viewpoints and potential consequences, officers can tailor their approach to de-escalation and conflict resolution, fostering positive outcomes and preserving trust within the community. Collaboration and communication with colleagues and supervisors also play a vital role in decision-making, ensuring that responses are coordinated, effective, and aligned with departmental policies and legal standards. Question 5. During a natural disaster in Rhode Island, what role do law enforcement officers play in emergency response efforts? A. Providing medical treatment and coordinating evacuation procedures for affected individuals. B. Conducting search and rescue operations to locate missing persons and provide assistance. C. Assisting with traffic control, securing affected areas, and managing public safety concerns. D. Conducting damage assessments and coordinating disaster recovery efforts with local agencies. Correct answer. C. Assisting with traffic control, securing affected areas, and managing public safety concerns. Explanation. Law enforcement officers in Rhode Island play a crucial role in emergency response and crisis management efforts during natural disasters. Their responsibilities may include assisting with traffic control to ensure the safe movement of vehicles and pedestrians, securing affected areas to prevent looting or unauthorized access, and managing public safety concerns such as downed power lines or hazardous materials spills. Additionally, officers may be involved in evacuating residents from areas at risk, providing assistance to vulnerable populations, and coordinating with other emergency response agencies to facilitate a coordinated and effective response. By proactively engaging in emergency preparedness and response activities, Rhode Island law enforcement agencies can help mitigate the impact of disasters, protect lives and property, and promote community resilience. Question 6. How do body-worn cameras benefit law enforcement practices in Rhode Island? A. By enabling officers to conduct covert surveillance operations without public knowledge. B. By providing an unbiased record of police interactions with the public, enhancing transparency and accountability. C. By allowing officers to remotely control surveillance drones for aerial monitoring of communities. D. By automatically issuing citations for minor infractions captured on camera without officer intervention. Correct answer. B. By providing an unbiased record of police interactions with the public, enhancing transparency and accountability. Explanation. Body-worn cameras have become valuable tools for law enforcement agencies in Rhode Island, as they provide an objective record of police interactions with the public. These cameras enhance transparency, accountability, and trust between law enforcement officers and the communities they serve by capturing unbiased footage of encounters. Body-worn camera footage can be used as evidence in investigations, corroborate officer reports, and protect both officers and citizens from false accusations. Additionally, the presence of body-worn cameras encourages positive behavioral changes among officers and civilians during interactions, reducing the likelihood of confrontations and complaints. It's essential for Rhode Island law enforcement agencies to establish clear policies and procedures regarding the use, storage, and release of body-worn camera footage to ensure compliance with legal and ethical standards. Question 7. Why is cultural competency essential for law enforcement officers in Rhode Island? A. To enforce laws impartially without considering the cultural backgrounds of individuals. B. To understand and respect the cultural nuances and diversity within Rhode Island communities. C. To prioritize the needs and preferences of one cultural group over others. D. To avoid interactions with communities that are perceived as different or unfamiliar. Correct answer. B. To understand and respect the cultural nuances and diversity within Rhode Island communities. Explanation. Cultural competency is crucial for law enforcement officers in Rhode Island to effectively engage with and serve diverse communities. Rhode Island is home to a rich tapestry of cultures, languages, and traditions, and officers must understand and respect these differences to build trust and rapport with residents. Cultural competency enables officers to recognize and navigate cultural nuances, communicate effectively across language barriers, and address community concerns sensitively. By embracing diversity and inclusivity, law enforcement agencies in Rhode Island can foster positive relationships, improve community policing efforts, and enhance public safety outcomes. It's essential for officers to undergo cultural competency training and engage in ongoing dialogue with community members to ensure that policing practices are respectful, equitable, and reflective of Rhode Island's diverse population. Question 8. Why is maintaining physical fitness essential for law enforcement officers in Rhode Island? A. To meet arbitrary fitness standards imposed by the department without practical application. B. To enhance officer safety, effectiveness in responding to emergencies, and overall job performance. C. To intimidate suspects and assert authority during law enforcement encounters. D. To compete in physical challenges and competitions with other law enforcement agencies. Correct answer: B. To enhance officer safety, effectiveness in responding to emergencies, and overall job performance. Explanation: Physical fitness is a fundamental aspect of law enforcement readiness and job performance in Rhode Island. Officers must maintain optimal physical conditioning to respond effectively to a wide range of situations, including emergencies, physical altercations, and pursuit scenarios. Physical fitness enhances officer safety, reduces the risk of injury, and improves overall job performance by increasing strength, endurance, and agility. Additionally, physically fit officers are better equipped to protect themselves and others in high-stress situations, mitigate the use of force when necessary, and fulfill the physical demands of law enforcement duties. Rhode Island law enforcement agencies typically establish fitness standards to ensure that officers are capable of performing essential job functions safely and proficiently. Regular physical training and wellness initiatives are integral components of a comprehensive approach to officer health and well-being. Question 9. Under Rhode Island law, what constitutes a Terry stop? A. A lawful arrest based on probable cause without the need for a warrant. B. A routine traffic stop conducted by law enforcement officers to check for vehicle violations. C. A temporary detention of an individual by law enforcement based on reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. D. A voluntary encounter between law enforcement and a citizen for informational purposes. Correct answer: C. A temporary detention of an individual by law enforcement based on reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. Explanation: In Rhode Island, a Terry stop, named after the Supreme Court case Terry v. Ohio, 1968, refers to a temporary detention of an individual by law enforcement officers based on reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. During a Terry stop, officers may briefly detain and question individuals if they have specific and articulable facts that would lead a reasonable person to suspect that criminal activity is afoot. However, Terry stops are distinct from arrests, as they involve a limited intrusion on an individual's freedom of movement and are justified by a lower standard of suspicion than probable cause. Officers conducting Terry stops may conduct a pat-down frisk for weapons if they have reasonable suspicion that the individual is armed and dangerous. Understanding the legal standards governing Terry stops is essential for Rhode Island law enforcement officers to ensure compliance with Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable searches and seizures. Question 10. Why is continuing education important for law enforcement officers in Rhode Island? A. To fulfill arbitrary training requirements mandated by the department without practical application. B. To stay updated on changes in laws, regulations, and best practices relevant to policing. C. To pursue advanced degrees for career advancement within the department. D. To compete with colleagues for promotions and recognition within the department. Correct answer: B. To stay updated on changes in laws, regulations, and best practices relevant to policing. Explanation. Continuing education is essential for law enforcement officers in Rhode Island to stay abreast of evolving laws, regulations, and best practices relevant to policing. The field of law enforcement is dynamic, with changes in legislation, court rulings, and emerging technologies impacting policing strategies and tactics. Continuing education ensures that officers remain knowledgeable and competent in their roles, allowing them to adapt to new challenges and effectively serve their communities. Additionally, ongoing training enhances officers' skills in areas such as de-escalation, cultural competency, and crisis intervention, improving their ability to respond to a diverse range of situations professionally and ethically. Rhode Island law enforcement agencies typically require officers to participate in regular training programs and professional development activities to maintain high standards of performance and uphold public trust. Question 11. What is the role of a grand jury in the Rhode Island criminal justice system? A. To determine the guilt or innocence of the defendant in a criminal trial. B. To review evidence presented by the prosecution and decide whether to indict the defendant. C. To oversee the execution of search warrants and arrest warrants issued by the court. D. To negotiate plea agreements between the prosecution and the defense in criminal cases. Correct answer. B. To review evidence presented by the prosecution and decide whether to indict the defendant. Explanation. In Rhode Island, a grand jury serves as a crucial component of the criminal justice system by reviewing evidence presented by the prosecution and determining whether there is probable cause to indict a defendant. Unlike trial juries, grand juries do not determine guilt or innocence. Instead, they assess the sufficiency of evidence to proceed with formal criminal charges. If the grand jury finds probable cause, it issues an indictment, formally charging the defendant with the alleged offense and initiating the trial process. Grand jury proceedings are conducted in secret to protect the integrity of the investigation and safeguard the reputations of individuals who may be under scrutiny. Understanding the role and function of the grand jury is essential for Rhode Island law enforcement officers and prosecutors to navigate the criminal justice process effectively. Question 12. How do effective communication skills contribute to successful law enforcement interactions in Rhode Island communities? A. By intimidating individuals into compliance with police directives. B. By facilitating rapport building and mutual understanding between officers and community members. C. By allowing officers to dominate conversations and assert authority over civilians. D. By minimizing communication to avoid potential conflicts or misunderstandings. Correct answer. B. By facilitating rapport building and mutual understanding between officers and community members. Explanation. Effective communication skills are essential for fostering positive relationships and mutual trust between law enforcement officers and community members in Rhode Island. By communicating respectfully, empathetically, and transparently, officers can establish rapport, de-escalate tense situations, and address community concerns sensitively. Effective communication involves active listening, clear articulation of information, and the ability to adapt communication styles to diverse audiences. Building trust through open dialogue and engagement enables officers to collaborate with residents, address underlying issues, and co-create solutions to community problems. In Rhode Island's culturally diverse communities, effective communication skills are particularly important for bridging linguistic and cultural barriers, enhancing police legitimacy, and promoting public safety. Question 13. When confronted with ethical dilemmas in law enforcement, what guiding principles should Rhode Island officers adhere to? A. Prioritizing personal interests over professional responsibilities. B. Upholding the highest standards of integrity, transparency, and accountability. C. Ignoring ethical considerations to achieve desired outcomes efficiently. D. Following orders without questioning the ethical implications of their actions. Correct answer. B. Upholding the highest standards of integrity, transparency, and accountability. Explanation. Ethical decision-making is integral to maintaining public trust and integrity within the law enforcement profession in Rhode Island. Officers should adhere to core principles of integrity, transparency, and accountability when confronted with ethical dilemmas, prioritizing the welfare of the community and upholding the rule of law. Upholding ethical standards requires officers to act with honesty, fairness, and impartiality, even in challenging situations. Transparency involves being open and forthcoming about actions, decisions, and motivations, fostering trust and accountability within the community. Accountability holds officers responsible for their conduct and ensures that they are held to appropriate standards of behavior. By adhering to these guiding principles, Rhode Island officers can navigate ethical challenges effectively, maintain public confidence, and uphold the integrity of the law enforcement profession. Question 14. How do crisis negotiation techniques assist law enforcement officers in Rhode Island during high-stakes situations? A. By escalating tensions and increasing the likelihood of violence. B. By prioritizing the use of force to quickly resolve the situation. C. By establishing rapport and communication channels to peacefully resolve conflicts. D. By ignoring the demands of individuals in crisis to assert authority. Correct answer. C. By establishing rapport and communication channels to peacefully resolve conflicts. Explanation. Crisis negotiation techniques are invaluable tools for law enforcement officers in Rhode Island when confronted with high-stakes situations involving individuals in crisis. Rather than resorting to force or aggression, crisis negotiators focus on establishing rapport, building trust, and fostering open communication with individuals experiencing distress. By actively listening to their concerns, validating their emotions, and offering support and empathy, negotiators can de-escalate tensions and facilitate peaceful resolutions to conflicts. Establishing communication channels allows negotiators to gather information, assess risks, and explore alternative solutions that prioritize the safety and well-being of all parties involved. Crisis negotiation requires patience, empathy, and a commitment to preserving life and minimizing harm, reflecting Rhode Island law enforcement's dedication to professionalism, compassion, and community-centered policing. Question 15. What rights are protected by the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution, particularly relevant to law enforcement operations in Rhode Island? A. The right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury. B. The right to bear arms and form a militia. C. The right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. D. The right to legal representation and due process in criminal proceedings. Correct answer. C. The right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. Explanation. The Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution safeguards individuals' privacy rights and protects them from unreasonable searches and seizures by government authorities, including law enforcement officers. In Rhode Island, as in all states, law enforcement officers must adhere to Fourth Amendment standards when conducting searches, obtaining warrants, and making arrests. Searches and seizures conducted without a warrant must be supported by probable cause and be reasonable in scope, respecting individuals' rights to privacy and freedom from arbitrary government intrusion. Understanding Fourth Amendment principles is essential for Rhode Island officers to ensure compliance with constitutional standards, safeguard civil liberties, and maintain public trust. Training in search and seizure laws, warrant requirements, and exceptions to the warrant requirement equips officers with the knowledge and skills needed to navigate legal complexities and uphold constitutional rights in their law enforcement practices. Question 16. What are the primary historical factors that shaped the development of law enforcement in Rhode Island? A. Economic shifts and industrialization in the 19th century. B. Religious influences and missionary activities. C. Political upheavals and revolutions in Europe. D. Technological advancements in transportation. Correct answer. A. Economic shifts and industrialization in the 19th century. Explanation. The development of law enforcement in Rhode Island, as in many other regions, was significantly influenced by economic shifts and industrialization during the 19th century. The expansion of industries such as manufacturing, shipping, and textiles led to population growth, urbanization, and increased crime rates. In response to these challenges, law enforcement agencies emerged to maintain public order, protect property, and enforce laws. The rise of organized labor movements, immigration, and social unrest further shaped law enforcement practices and priorities during this period. Understanding the historical context of law enforcement in Rhode Island provides insights into the evolution of policing strategies, community dynamics, and the role of law enforcement in addressing societal needs. Question 17. How do advancements in surveillance technology impact privacy rights in Rhode Island communities? A. By enhancing citizens' ability to monitor law enforcement activities. B. By facilitating indiscriminate surveillance and erosion of privacy rights. C. By providing law enforcement with tools to selectively target individuals based on personal characteristics. D. By increasing transparency and accountability in law enforcement operations. Correct answer. B. By facilitating indiscriminate surveillance and erosion of privacy rights. Explanation. Advancements in surveillance technology pose significant challenges to privacy rights in Rhode Island communities by enabling indiscriminate surveillance and potential abuse of power by law enforcement agencies. Technologies such as facial recognition, drones, and biometric tracking systems have the capacity to monitor individuals' activities, behaviors, and associations on a massive scale, raising concerns about government intrusion and surveillance overreach. Without appropriate safeguards and regulations, these technologies may infringe upon individuals' Fourth Amendment rights to privacy and protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. Balancing the benefits of surveillance technology with the preservation of civil liberties requires careful consideration of ethical, legal, and societal implications, as well as robust oversight mechanisms to ensure accountability and transparency in law enforcement practices. Question 18. How does the philosophy of community-oriented policing align with Rhode Island's diverse cultural landscape? A. By prioritizing enforcement actions over community engagement. B. By recognizing and respecting the unique needs and perspectives of Rhode Island's multicultural communities. C. By advocating for segregation and exclusion of certain demographic groups. D. By enforcing strict disciplinary measures to maintain social order. Correct answer. B. By recognizing and respecting the unique needs and perspectives of Rhode Island's multicultural communities. Explanation. Community-oriented policing emphasizes building collaborative partnerships between law enforcement agencies and diverse communities to address public safety concerns. In Rhode Island, where multiculturalism and diversity are integral aspects of the social fabric, this philosophy aligns with the state's cultural landscape by recognizing and respecting the unique needs, perspectives, and identities of its residents. By actively engaging with community members, understanding cultural nuances, and fostering trust and cooperation, law enforcement agencies in Rhode Island can effectively address crime and disorder while promoting inclusivity, equity, and social cohesion. Community-oriented policing strategies tailored to Rhode Island's multicultural communities prioritize dialogue, collaboration, and problem-solving, reflecting a commitment to responsive, community-centered law enforcement practices. Question 19. Why is psychological evaluation a critical component of the law enforcement recruitment process in Rhode Island? A. To discriminate against candidates based on mental health conditions. B. To ensure that candidates possess the necessary psychological resilience and suitability for the demands of police work. C. To violate candidates' privacy rights and personal autonomy. D. To expedite the recruitment process by eliminating the need for comprehensive background checks. Correct answer. B. To ensure that candidates possess the necessary psychological resilience and suitability for the demands of police work. Explanation. Psychological evaluation is a critical component of the law enforcement recruitment process in Rhode Island to assess candidates' psychological resilience, suitability, and fitness for the demanding nature of police work. Police officers encounter a wide range of stressors, including exposure to trauma, critical incidents, and challenging interactions, which can impact their mental health and well-being. Psychological evaluation helps identify candidates who possess the coping skills, emotional stability, and interpersonal competencies necessary to effectively navigate these stressors and perform their duties professionally and ethically. By screening for psychological suitability, Rhode Island law enforcement agencies can mitigate the risk of adverse outcomes, such as officer misconduct, burnout, and psychological distress, while promoting the health, safety, and resilience of their personnel. Question 20. What role does the exclusionary rule play in Rhode Island criminal proceedings? A. It allows law enforcement officers to exclude evidence obtained unlawfully from court proceedings. B. It requires courts to admit all evidence, regardless of how it was obtained by law enforcement. C. It prohibits the use of illegally obtained evidence by law enforcement in criminal prosecutions. D. It permits law enforcement officers to conduct searches without a warrant. Correct answer. C. It prohibits the use of illegally obtained evidence by law enforcement in criminal prosecutions. Explanation. The exclusionary rule, a judicially created remedy, prohibits the use of evidence obtained unlawfully by law enforcement officers in violation of constitutional rights, such as the Fourth Amendment, in criminal prosecutions. In Rhode Island, as in all states, the exclusionary rule serves as a deterrent to unlawful police conduct, ensuring that evidence obtained through illegal searches, seizures, or interrogation tactics is not admissible in court. By excluding unlawfully obtained evidence, the exclusionary rule upholds the integrity of the criminal justice system, safeguards constitutional rights, and promotes accountability for law enforcement misconduct. Rhode Island law enforcement officers must adhere to legal standards and procedural requirements when conducting investigations to ensure that evidence gathered is admissible in court and withstands judicial scrutiny. Question 21. How can law enforcement officers in Rhode Island address implicit biases to enhance their interactions with diverse communities? A. By disregarding cultural differences to maintain impartiality. B. By acknowledging personal biases and actively engaging in diversity training and self-reflection. C. By targeting specific demographic groups for heightened scrutiny. D. By avoiding interactions with communities perceived as different or unfamiliar. Correct answer. B. By acknowledging personal biases and actively engaging in diversity training and self-reflection. Explanation. Acknowledging and addressing implicit biases is essential for law enforcement officers in Rhode Island to promote equitable and respectful interactions with diverse communities. Implicit biases are unconscious attitudes or stereotypes that influence individuals' perceptions and behaviors, often without their awareness. By recognizing their own biases and engaging in diversity training, cultural competency education, and self-reflection, officers can mitigate the impact of bias on their decision-making and interactions. This proactive approach fosters empathy, understanding, and trust between law enforcement and community members, enhancing communication, cooperation, and public safety outcomes. Rhode Island law enforcement agencies often provide training and resources to help officers identify and mitigate implicit biases, ensuring that policing practices are fair, impartial, and responsive to the needs of all residents. Question 22. In Rhode Island, what are the key principles of the Incident Command System, ICS, during emergency response operations? A. Centralized decision-making and strict hierarchical structures. B. Decentralized decision-making and ad hoc organizational structures. C. Collaboration, coordination, and clear communication among response agencies. D. Limited information sharing and isolation of response efforts. Correct answer. C. Collaboration, coordination, and clear communication among response agencies. Explanation. The Incident Command System, ICS, emphasizes collaboration, coordination, and clear communication among response agencies during emergency response operations in Rhode Island. ICS provides a standardized framework for organizing, managing, and coordinating emergency response efforts, ensuring that resources are effectively utilized and objectives are achieved in a timely manner. By establishing clear chains of command, defining roles and responsibilities, and facilitating information sharing, ICS enhances interoperability and synergy among multiple agencies involved in response activities. In Rhode Island, where emergencies such as natural disasters, accidents, and public health crises can pose significant challenges, adherence to ICS principles promotes efficiency, effectiveness, and resilience in emergency management. Question 23. Under Rhode Island law, what is required for a search warrant to be considered valid? A. The approval of a single law enforcement officer. B. The presence of probable cause and judicial authorization. C. The consent of the individual being searched. D. The completion of a standardized form. Correct answer. B. The presence of probable cause and judicial authorization. Explanation. In Rhode Island, as in all states, a search warrant is considered valid when it is supported by probable cause and judicial authorization. Probable cause refers to the reasonable belief that evidence of a crime will be found in the place to be searched, based on specific and articulable facts. To obtain a search warrant, law enforcement officers must present sworn affidavits or testimony to a neutral magistrate or judge, demonstrating probable cause and describing the place to be searched and the items to be seized. Judicial authorization ensures independent oversight and safeguards against arbitrary or unreasonable searches and seizures. Rhode Island law requires strict adherence to constitutional standards and procedural safeguards to protect individuals' Fourth Amendment rights against unlawful searches and seizures. Compliance with search warrant requirements is essential for law enforcement officers to gather evidence lawfully and uphold the integrity of criminal investigations and prosecutions. Question 24. How can law enforcement agencies in Rhode Island effectively engage with marginalized or vulnerable communities to address public safety concerns? A. By implementing discriminatory policing tactics to target high-crime areas. B. By fostering trust, collaboration, and partnerships through community-oriented policing strategies. C. By excluding marginalized communities from decision-making processes. D. By deploying excessive force to suppress dissent and maintain control. Correct answer. B. By fostering trust, collaboration, and partnerships through community-oriented policing strategies. Explanation. Law enforcement agencies in Rhode Island can effectively engage with marginalized or vulnerable communities by adopting community-oriented policing strategies that prioritize trust, collaboration, and partnerships. Community-oriented policing emphasizes proactive problem-solving, community engagement, and personalized service delivery tailored to the unique needs and concerns of local residents. By building relationships, listening to community members' perspectives, and involving them in decision-making processes, law enforcement agencies can co-create solutions to public safety challenges and address underlying social issues. Fostering trust and collaboration enhances community resilience, reduces crime and disorder, and promotes a sense of ownership and responsibility for public safety. Question 25. How can law enforcement officers in Rhode Island apply critical thinking skills to assess and respond to evolving threats such as cybercrime? A. By relying solely on traditional policing methods and ignoring technological advancements. B. By outsourcing cybersecurity responsibilities to specialized agencies or consultants. C. By staying informed about emerging trends and adopting proactive measures to prevent and mitigate cyber threats. D. By waiting for legislative action before taking any proactive steps to address cybercrime. Correct answer. C. By staying informed about emerging trends and adopting proactive measures to prevent and mitigate cyber threats. Explanation. Law enforcement officers in Rhode Island can apply critical thinking skills to assess and respond to evolving threats such as cybercrime by staying informed about emerging trends and adopting proactive measures to prevent and mitigate cyber threats. Cybercrime presents unique challenges that require innovative approaches and interdisciplinary collaboration to address effectively. By monitoring cybersecurity trends, conducting risk assessments, and engaging in ongoing training and education, officers can enhance their understanding of cyber threats and develop strategies to protect individuals, businesses, and critical infrastructure from cyber attacks. Proactive measures may include implementing cybersecurity best practices, collaborating with cybersecurity experts, and leveraging technological solutions to detect and respond to cyber threats in real time. Question 26. How does the use of body-worn cameras by law enforcement officers in Rhode Island impact transparency and accountability? A. By concealing officers' actions and reducing public trust in law enforcement. B. By providing an objective record of police interactions with the public, enhancing transparency and accountability. C. By selectively editing footage to manipulate public perceptions. D. By increasing bureaucratic burdens and administrative overhead for law enforcement agencies. Correct answer. B. By providing an objective record of police interactions with the public, enhancing transparency and accountability. Explanation. The use of body-worn cameras by law enforcement officers in Rhode Island enhances transparency and accountability by providing an objective record of police interactions with the public. Body-worn cameras capture audio and video footage of officers' encounters, documenting their actions, behaviors, and communications during law enforcement activities. This footage serves as valuable evidence in investigations of alleged misconduct, use of force incidents, and citizen complaints, offering independent corroboration of events and enhancing the credibility of law enforcement agencies. By promoting transparency, body-worn cameras strengthen public trust in law enforcement, increase police legitimacy, and improve community relations. To maximize the benefits of body-worn cameras, Rhode Island law enforcement agencies establish policies and procedures governing their use, storage, and release of footage, ensuring compliance with legal requirements and safeguarding individuals' privacy rights. Question 27. How do continuing education requirements contribute to the professional development of law enforcement officers in Rhode Island? A. By discouraging officers from pursuing additional training or academic qualifications. B. By ensuring that officers remain up to date on evolving laws, policies, and best practices. C. By limiting officers' exposure to diverse perspectives and innovative approaches. D. By exempting experienced officers from participating in ongoing learning opportunities. Correct answer. B. By ensuring that officers remain up to date on evolving laws, policies, and best practices. Explanation. Continuing education requirements play a vital role in the professional development of law enforcement officers in Rhode Island by ensuring that they remain up to date on evolving laws, policies, and best practices. The field of law enforcement is dynamic and subject to constant change, with new laws, regulations, and technologies emerging regularly. Continuing education enables officers to enhance their knowledge, skills, and competencies, adapt to changing circumstances, and address emerging challenges effectively. By participating in training, seminars, workshops, and academic programs, officers have opportunities to deepen their understanding of critical issues, such as legal updates, cultural competency, crisis intervention, and leadership development. Continuing education fosters a culture of lifelong learning, professionalism, and innovation within law enforcement agencies, promoting excellence, accountability, and public trust. Question 28. In a scenario where a law enforcement officer encounters a mentally distressed individual wielding a weapon, what strategies can the officer employ to de-escalate the situation safely? A. Use aggressive verbal commands to assert authority and control. B. Maintain a safe distance and establish open communication to diffuse tension. C. Immediately resort to the use of lethal force to neutralize the threat. D. Disregard the individual's mental state and focus solely on apprehension. Correct answer. B. Maintain a safe distance and establish open communication to diffuse tension. Explanation. When encountering a mentally distressed individual wielding a weapon, law enforcement officers in Rhode Island can employ de-escalation strategies to safely resolve the situation and minimize the risk of harm to all parties involved. Maintaining a safe distance and establishing open communication are essential initial steps to diffuse tension and establish rapport with the individual. Officers should use calm, non-confrontational language and gestures to encourage the individual to lower the weapon and engage in dialogue. Active listening, empathy, and validation of the individual's emotions can help build trust and de-escalate the situation. Officers may also consider creating physical barriers or providing options for the individual to retreat or surrender peacefully. De-escalation requires patience, empathy, and situational awareness, as well as the ability to assess and adapt to changing dynamics in real time. Question 29. Why is maintaining physical fitness essential for law enforcement officers in Rhode Island? A. To intimidate suspects and assert authority through physical prowess. B. To meet mandatory fitness standards and avoid disciplinary actions. C. To enhance operational effectiveness, minimize injuries, and ensure personal safety during law enforcement activities. D. To prioritize personal fitness goals over professional responsibilities. Correct answer: C. To enhance operational effectiveness, minimize injuries, and ensure personal safety during law enforcement activities. Explanation: Maintaining physical fitness is essential for law enforcement officers in Rhode Island to enhance operational effectiveness, minimize injuries, and ensure personal safety during law enforcement activities. Police work often requires physical exertion, agility, and endurance, whether pursuing suspects on foot, engaging in defensive tactics, or responding to emergency situations. Officers with higher levels of fitness are better equipped to perform their duties efficiently, respond effectively to dynamic situations, and protect themselves and others from harm. Physical fitness also promotes overall health and well-being, reducing the risk of injuries, illnesses, and chronic health conditions that can impact job performance and longevity in the profession. Rhode Island law enforcement agencies typically establish fitness standards and provide opportunities for officers to participate in physical training programs, emphasizing the importance of maintaining a healthy lifestyle and peak physical condition to meet the demands of modern policing. Question 30. How does adherence to ethical standards contribute to the integrity of law enforcement in Rhode Island? A. By allowing officers to prioritize personal interests over professional responsibilities. B. By fostering public trust and confidence in the fairness and impartiality of law enforcement agencies. C. By promoting corruption and misconduct within law enforcement organizations. D. By undermining accountability and transparency in law enforcement operations. Correct answer: B. By fostering public trust and confidence in the fairness and impartiality of law enforcement agencies. Explanation: Adherence to ethical standards is essential for maintaining the integrity of law enforcement in Rhode Island by fostering public trust and confidence in the fairness and impartiality of law enforcement agencies. Ethical conduct is foundational to the legitimacy of policing and ensures that officers uphold the highest standards of professionalism, integrity, and accountability in their interactions with the community. By acting ethically, officers demonstrate respect for constitutional rights, adherence to legal standards, and commitment to serving the public good. Ethical behavior promotes transparency, honesty, and accountability in law enforcement operations, enhancing public perception and reducing skepticism or distrust towards law enforcement agencies. Rhode Island law enforcement agencies often establish codes of ethics, conduct regular ethics training, and enforce disciplinary measures to reinforce ethical behavior and maintain public confidence in the integrity and credibility of law enforcement institutions.